What makes a great burger what it is? Some say it's the quality of the meat. Some say it's the seasoning and the grilling of the patty. And some say it's the quality of the toppings. All of these are obviously very important components, but is that really what makes a great burger? In my opinion, if you manage to get all these components right, but fail to get a perfect burger bun, you're quite far from having a great burger. Today, I will share with you a killer burger bun recipe that will change your burger making game for good. So let's check it out. The function of the burger bun is not only to hold the components of the burger together, but also to keep the flavors together. Naturally, each of the inner components of a burger reacts differently to different types of bakery. That's why a burger is not the same in a different type of bun. There are several types of burger buns out there. Some burgers are served with plain white buns, Kaiser rolls, ciabatta buns, pretzel buns, potato buns, and even sliced bread. But to many people, the brioche bun remains the best of all, not only because it's the softest, but also because it amplifies the moisture as well as the inner flavors of the burger. Today I'll be showing you how to nail the perfect brioche burger buns using a very powerful ingredient, which is the Chinese water roux known as Tangzhong. Tangzhong is a paste made by cooking flour in milk or water over 65 degrees Celsius. It improves the texture of the bread and increases the amount of time it takes to stale. This technique is popular in Chinese, Japanese, and Asian bakery in general under different names. I know it sounds intimidating for the first time, but believe me, it couldn't be easier. We're gonna prepare this water roux in a few minutes, let it cool down, then add it to the other ingredients in our brioche dough ball. First, let's check the ingredients before we get to work. We will need 550 grams of all-purpose flour, 50 grams for the Tangzhong paste, and 500 for the brioche dough. We're gonna also need 295 milliliters of milk, 225 for the Tangzhong paste, and the other 70 for the brioche ball. We're gonna need 30 grams of fresh yeast. You can also use active dry yeast or instant yeast. We're gonna also use 70 grams of soft butter, so make sure you get it early enough out of the fridge. We're gonna need 10 grams of fine salt. We're gonna also need 37 grams of powdered sugar. We're gonna also use 150 milliliters of lukewarm water. Lukewarm water so it doesn't kill the yeast, because as you know, yeast is a living thing. And we're gonna also use 2 eggs, one for the dough and one for the egg wash. And the last thing we're gonna need is a little bit of toasted sesame seeds to sprinkle over our burger buns before we bake them in the oven. The first thing we're gonna prepare is the Chinese water roux known as Tangzhong. Since we're gonna need it to be completely cooled down after we cook it, feel free to prepare it a day or two before we incorporate it with the other ingredients of the brioche dough ball. This way you're going to be saving time, as you wouldn't want to interrupt the process by waiting for the Tangzhong to cool down. We first mix the milk or the water with the flour until there are no lumps in it. Then, in a saucepan on medium heat, we will heat the mix while stirring continuously. We will cook the mixture until it thickens and becomes like a pudding consistency. Then remove it from the heat and let it fully cool down. To avoid the formation of skin on the surface of the roux, you can use plastic wrap to cover it well by contacting the surface of the roux. Then you can refrigerate it for a couple of days if you want before using it in the dough ball. After the Tangzhong paste cools down, we're gonna start preparing our brioche dough ball. At first, we will mix all the dry ingredients. We will mix the 500 grams of all-purpose flour, the powdered sugar, the fine salt, and the fresh yeast. After that, we're gonna add half of the water and milk amounts to the dry ingredients and blend everything with a hand mixer on a low speed. We will keep mixing the dry and wet ingredients until they become homogeneous. Once we see that the wet and dry ingredients are fully mixed, we can add the softened butter, followed by the remaining half of the milk and water amounts. Shortly after, we can add the Tangzhong paste that we prepared earlier after it completely cooled down. After the dough ball starts forming, we're gonna add 1 egg to it and keep mixing. When the egg dissolves completely in the dough, we're gonna take out the dough and keep kneading it by hand until it turns into a perfect soft ball. By kneading the dough, we strengthen the gluten and the elasticity, which creates a strong structure in the dough. Gluten is a type of protein in wheat flour that gathers into strands during kneading. Those strands are what makes the bread elastic and chewy. After we reach the desired softness of the dough ball by kneading it, we're gonna put it in an oiled container and cover it well for about 30 minutes or until it doubles in size. During the resting period, the fermentation process develops flavor and relaxes the gluten strands so it's easier to roll or stretch into the desired shape. If the gluten is too stiff, we wouldn't get the desired texture and flavor. After the first resting of the dough and when we see it doubled in size, we're gonna uncover it and push all the air out of it. After that, we can weigh the dough in order to divide it later into equal-sized buns. After we divide our dough, we're gonna create another perfect ball from each dough part. Then we're gonna let them proof for an hour. In bread baking, the word proofing most commonly refers to the final rise dough undergoes, which takes place after being shaped into a loaf and before it's baked. We will let the dough have this final rise or proofing on the baking tray, which will be set and ready to go into the oven. Typically, dough has to be covered during proofing or the second rise, but in our case, using a towel would impede the buns from growing beautifully. That's why I will cover them with a little bit of oil, then keep them in the oven to rise. After the proofing is done and all the little dough balls are puffed and ready to be baked, we're gonna brush them all with a little bit of egg wash. We make the egg wash by beating 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of milk in a small bowl with a fork until well combined. We use the egg wash to help give them a strikingly golden color and an eye-catching gloss after baking. And it also helps the sesame seeds adhere to the dough. We will sprinkle the lightly toasted sesame on our buns to be and put the tray in the preheated oven under 200 degrees Celsius for 18 minutes. After we get the buns out of the oven, we will let them to cool down before we get them out of the baking range. Now we have our perfect burger buns that taste at least 100 times better than any other buns you would buy from anywhere. It's so spongy and soft and it stays fresh for a couple of days at least, not to mention the texture that carries the burger flavors perfectly to your tasty buds. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below, and see you very soon with many recipes to come.